Hello, and welcome back to the True Crime Friday podcast. This is episode 34, all on Dennis Nilsen, the British Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm not hearing any of that shite. Alright? No commenting that shit. Don't care. No sending me that shit. It irks me. It's annoying, because it's not true though, is it? Anyway, this episode is on Dennis Nilsen, so of course there has to be a disclaimer if you are not aware of how bad this case is. So this case will mention subtle lines of homophobia, it will mention murder, decapitation, necrophilia, death, murder obviously, and violence that some people may find upsetting and or disturbing. You probably will actually find all that upsetting and disturbing. We will be going into a bit of graphic detail in some parts about it because it's important to the case. So be wary of that, but like usual, like every episode, I'll be doing the whole trigger warning before I go into detail about it. But yeah, that is that. Let's roll on with the episode before I'm late again. Hello.
There we go.
There we go. I was very confused on what you were doing then.
Oh, it's a bit low. Low for me anyway, so I'm taking it up.
Trying to sort my hair out because now I've got like a fringe. Whenever I wear my headphones, I look like a twat with a bowl cut. It's really annoying. Right, I think that's fine. I think it's okay. Right, we'll deal with it. We'll just have to deal with this shit. But anyway, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Matt, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm good.
You were late. You were the one who was late today.
No, yeah, I was doing stuff, and I need to grind this thing because I didn't start playing the game late, but I want to get everything before the time is out. So had to do daily challenges, which I should have done earlier today, but I was out buying stuff, or buying a new pedal, I should say.
Ah, very nice.
So that took up some of my time.
Nice.
So I apologize, guys, but I was playing Multiverses. So if anyone who's playing that game right now, you'll know how addicting it is and how good it is, and you can understand why I was a bit late.
Yeah, I'm sure they get it. They get it. I've not played it, so I don't get it. But you know.
Well, anyone who is listening, play it. It's free. You should. Who wouldn't want to play a fighting game where you can play Shaggy?
Okay, no, that's a good point. Yeah, that actually sounds pretty fun.
Although I main as Finn from Adventure Time, if you couldn't already tell.
Okay. It's freaking warm in my room. It always is warm in this flat.
It was a little bit warmer today actually, when I was out. But weather change is interchangeable here, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's warm. It's warmer here than it has been the past couple of days. But obviously, last week was just disgusting. So I'll take this over that any day. So that's fine.
Yep.
But yeah, so this episode is another Scottish one. Cause
Yay.
I've been wanting to cover this case on the podcast for a while, and also you can see me messing with my hair a lot. It's because it's really pissing me off, and it looks shit. So, but yeah, I've been wanting to cover this case on the podcast for a while. If you used to watch my Twitch, then you might remember me covering this case very early days. But this is a big one. It's very known. So we're covering Dennis Nilsen, who is often called the British Jeffrey Dahmer, and I fucking hate that. It annoys me because it's not true.
No.
Because he did everything before Jeffrey Dahmer. So if anything, Jeffrey Dahmer is the American Dennis Nilsen. They were very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dennis Nilsen did it first. It's not like it's a competition, but he did it first.
Yeah.
But they were very similar. in
Mhm.
their victims and in what they did with them, especially. Not Dennis didn't go to the very, very, very extreme levels of Dahmer, which was, acid in the skull,
Yeah.
and zombies and eating them, especially.
No.
But the whole wanting to keep them and have them as a companion, as someone to control and have with them all the time, that was 110% pretty much what they both did.
Yeah.
And you know a bit about you know a bit about this case as well. I'm pretty sure you said.
I mean, I not that I like should know, but you know, considering Dennis Nilsen himself and where he's from, it's a case I, researched about and know about because it's as close as home as any case can get. Not in terms of where stuff happened, but someone of this notoriety doing this stuff from where you are from.
Mm-hmm.
So I Wikipedia looked at stuff, this sort of thing, because it's very more interesting when I find whether someone is closer to you in a sense that way. The other ones are like fine, but it doesn't hit as hard like Jeffrey Dahmer because that's in the US and America. I've never been. I'm not even American. Okay. But like when it's someone that's from the UK, it hits a bit more. But obviously when it's someone from the UK and they're a bit closer to where you are, or they were from where you are, it hits even more. So that's why I kind of know a fair about this.
Yeah, and like I get that as well because I get that with the Moors murders, prime one, like
Yeah.
because it's very, very local, and even a bit with the Yorkshire Ripper, and that's just because two of the Yorkshire Ripper murders were done in Manchester, and my parents remember the manhunt, well, the investigation, the whole thing kind of going off, like they remember that happening. So
Yeah.
it does hit a bit home, especially because when we cover stuff that's American or from various other countries, we can look at it in a very much like fictional way in a sense because
Yeah.
we might not remember that being a nation or an international news-wide thing, but when it's in the UK, it hits so much different because either our parents will remember this all happening, or we remember this happening, or it hits very close to home, which to be fair is probably how a lot of the American listeners feel when we go on about Bundy, Dahmer, all this kind of stuff. You'll always
Yeah.
hit home. But yeah, this one is obviously a bit closer to you. But so yeah, we're gonna go into Dennis Nilsen. I've already said the disclaimer, so you all just make sure you pay attention to that because it's
Yes.
very disgusting, this episode. But yeah, so Dennis Nilsen was born on the 23rd November 1945 in Fraserburgh, Scotland. Did I say that right?
Yes, you
Yeah,
said
boy!
it correct.
Yeah, fuck
Um,
yeah! I'm gonna make
well,
a chart. I'm gonna make a freaking chart. So whenever I say shit right, I'm gonna fucking give myself a little point.
yeah, you said Scotland, but more accurately Aberdeenshire, if I will. And if anyone's not in the know, that's where I'm from, more on the northeast of Scotland. Yes. So yeah, that's why I know the case. For anyone was like, "How does this person know the case?" I live in Aberdeenshire. I'm not really doxing myself, but I live in Inverurie, which is not far from Fraserburgh. Or if we're gonna talk locally, no one really calls it Fraserburgh. It's called the Broch.
Okay.
And I doubt you could say that, but that's what the locals call it, the Broch. I guess
Okay.
like Manchester, you might call it Manny, maybe, or something like that. Or like Liverpool, you might call it a different name, or like London, they might give it like a localized name from the area you're in. But yeah, that's why, because we're from Inverurie, to say where you from, you don't say Inverurie to say I'm from Inver. It's shortened. You know where it is.
Yeah, like
You know,
some people say
on
Manny if like they're talking to someone that they just met like some outside of Manchester, and you find out they're from Manchester, and you might go, "Oh, you're from Manny," and that's kind of like it.
yeah,
Something
but
like
that's
that,
like
but it rarely happens. But no, people do say Manny,
yeah,
or
no, but
or,
that's what they
or
call it here.
you're a mank. You're a mank.
Well,
You're
it's
from-
it's more it's a Scots thing as well because I think it's Scots versus the Broch is just, and it's a well known thing that you just call it that. But if
Interesting.
and it is quite interesting. the like Fraserburgh within itself, because most people can kind of gather an image, and we'll go into his like early life, but most people can like garner an image of like if Jeffrey Dahmer, from California. Most people already kind of know what California's kind of like. I've not been, but from what like videos I've seen and movies and this and that, you kind of get the idea of what living in there is kind of like from what the streets look like, that sort of thing. But I feel like with Dennis Nilsen, he comes from like Fraserburgh, and it's one of those places where majority of people researching this cases will have no idea what like a town up here looks like or can envision that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. I don't have a fucking clue.
Which is why, but you know.
Also,
Well,
don't worry, guys. We do know that Dahmer was from Wisconsin and did all his crimes in Milwaukee. We are
oh, sorry. Why was I saying California then?
Because all the fucking serial killers operate in
Sorry.
California, innit?
I was saying that. I'm thinking, no, that's not right.
He's called Milwaukee Cannibal for context, but yeah, no, all the fucking serial killers.
I'm an idiot. What?
No,
it's Milwaukee.
It's
for some reason, I was thinking.
It's because half the ones that we've been talking about are bloody doing shit in California. That's why.
I've had a brain fart, guys. That's what I'm.
All the
okay,
cases are kind of like all the cases that we've done are kind of like just absorbing in your brain, and they're just getting a bit.
That's what the brain fart is. For some reason, I just think killers, and I think California, which is quite bad. Who is John Wayne Gacy? He was from California, wasn't he?
No.
Ah, well, some of the killers I don't. I'm looking like an idiot now.
Done. John.
Is anyone from California? Oh, I don't know.
No one.
I'm now looking like an idiot.
No, John Wayne Gacy is from Chicago.
Ah, well, regardless, I've said it wrong, and I now know that Jeffrey Dahmer was Milwaukee. I should have bloody known that. For some reason, I just had California in my head. But regardless of like Chicago, you kind of get the idea of what that looks like if you've seen Home Alone or you've seen any, film that relates to that. But no, yeah, so it's quite home because nobody. Well, I say if nobody knows. For most people's context, I live in Inverurie, which is just off of Aberdeen, which is maybe the most known place in the northeast of Scotland. So that's driving to Fraserburgh is like 50-minute drive from me, and it's like 40 miles from Aberdeen, so that's about 34 miles maybe from me. It's this that if you look at a map of Scotland, and like the northeast, like it is where it is in the map. If you go around the coast, it's right at the top, very top corner. So my best mate's actually from there. His family's from the Broch. So it's a very interesting place. I mean, I'll say it now. Stereotypes. And the stereotype of the Broch is, well, I guess it's either that or Peterhead, that families fuck each other. So if anyone is listening from the Broch, I'm sorry. It's a stereotype. You know it's coming. But
well, it doesn't help when you because Dennis Nilsen did molest his siblings, so there you go.
Yeah, well, that's why I mentioned it. I mean,
that's not funny, but it's funny that you said the stereotype, and in my head I went, "Wait, I swear he did something."
Yeah, and people smell fishy. It's known for its fish, that sort of thing.
Okay.
If you ever see documentaries on like fishing and stuff, they're always fishing up in the Broch, so that's kind of what it's known for. I have been. If anyone thinks, oh, have you been? Yeah, I have. It's got a good sweet shop. For redeeming factors, Fraserburgh has a good sweet shop that I've never been to, and the Wetherspoons was alright. And I had a Toy Master, if I believe. And I think that's all I could say about the Broch. And the people talk with a heavy accent, which I'm assuming he would have talked with a heavy Northeast Doric accent, but that's as much as I can give for Fraserburgh. But that's why it hits home, guys. You know how close that is to me?
He has a fairly strong accent, but it's not that strong. I'm going to say that. It's not, it's a very, you won't be able to pinpoint it. It's a very, like, he didn't, bear in mind, he had his childhood there, but like, he didn't carry on living there. Like, he did move.
Yeah,
he moved to London, so I feel like the accent kind of, as Alistair's dad is from Edinburgh, I'm pretty sure. I think it's from Edinburgh, and his accent's gone way down since.
Yeah, it's tough because up here, a lot of the time, someone will speak like a sentence, and folk from all over the world have seen videos of someone speaking like from here, and they'll go, "Oh, the accent's so thick, I can't understand anything." Or like someone from Ireland, they're like, "Oh, some of those accents are so thick, I can't understand it."
Oh, no,
and then some people up here will be like, "Oh, that's not as thick. Other
Yeah,
people will say that's super thick. I don't know.
mate.
People have kind of said that with me, so
One of
I
my
don't know.
bosses is from Ireland. His accent is thick, like Jesus. Like sometimes I do actually struggle. I can understand him sometimes, but he talks really fast as well. And it doesn't help. You know, if someone talks insanely fast and they just kind of get and they mumble as well, so it kind of gets jumbled.
Yeah,
He has a thick accent. He mumbles and he speaks fast. So
it's that along with more or less local dialect words that really like confuse folk.
true.
Like if they're saying dialect words that they know and they say it quicker and then in that accent and it's thick, then people are just like clueless, and
Yeah.
people speak like that all the time up here. Or trust me, there's like thick accents galore. You get that in Manchester. I've seen as well. People who've just got like there's no like broadened, just like semi-English mixed semi-Manchester. I've seen a couple of people where it's like just full-on Mancunian,
Yeah.
and it's so thick that there's no way that they'd speak the perceived sort of English
Yeah. Yeah.
with their
Exactly.
twang. Like a half and half. I mean, kind of like with me, I've got the accent, but I don't speak 100% Doric, so you can understand what I'm saying, but I've got the accent, so is that 50-50?
Yeah, and I just have a northern accent. It's not very
Yeah.
very
So you're
manky.
the same. You've got the accent there,
Certain
but you
things
still
as
speak
yes,
English that you
like
can.
certain things I say, you can be like, oh yeah, Manchester. But
Yeah, yeah.
but if
I
you
don't know.
just speak to me, you sometimes just go northern, but you can't pinpoint it because I didn't go out
Yeah.
a lot as a kid, and that's the reason. But yeah, so
Yeah, and you learn it off of others because probably with Nielsen, he probably spoke quite heavy up here because if your family speak it, you learn off them. I've got my granddad who's in his 90s, absolutely thick dark accent, so I've learned lots from him. So especially at the time that he's going about, you know, there's no just traveling anywhere, especially when he's quite young, to really develop an accent or just forget everything. When he goes to London, it's probably changed a bit, but
yeah. So yeah, his dad was an absent alcoholic father. If you want to take a bunch of shit off to base a serial killer off, that is definitely one of them because that's always a running theme.
I mean, he's Scottish. Of course, you're going to be a fucking alky bastard.
His dad isn't Scottish; he's Norwegian.
Oh well, he's living in Scotland anyway, so he's going to turn an alky bastard. That's why.
Yeah, so his dad was a Norwegian soldier called Olaf Magnus Nilsen, and his mum was called Betty White, not that Betty White. Believe me, when I first heard that, I was like, but no. So Olaf was an absent alcoholic father and spent most of his time away from the family, and he was very weird. So he went away across seas doing his job, and he only came back to get Betty pregnant, and that was the sole purpose. And as soon as basically they got that out of the way, he fucked off again. It was very weird. So he would then eventually leave the family for good when Dennis was around 6 years old. And by this time, Dennis said that the first 5 years of his life were his favourite. I don't know how he'd fucking remember that. I barely remember most of my childhood because, like, I can't be asked.
Yeah, if you can remember your really younger years, I'm pretty sure they say that's quite impressive. There's only like a certain handful that can remember that.
My flatmate she can remember she's got memories from when she was one. I don't know
I
why.
mean, you only remember very vivid things in your like brain, so that all the other stuff you just forget about. And especially to say the first 5 years were some of the best. That's
That's tragic.
that's a bit like whoa,
Yeah,
because in like 5 years, in the first 5 years, you've done like fuck all of your life. You're doing the developing of your life.
exactly. So yeah, he spent
What's
most of
fun
it.
about that?
Yeah, the first 5 years he spent with his granddad Andrew White. So he was a very strict man. He was very sullen. He was very proud, and he hated alcohol. So he was the complete opposite of Dennis's dad. He hated the radio, and he hated working. He hated a lot of things. He was a
At
very
that time, wow.
he just didn't like a lot of things. Basically, he seemed to find like content and joy when he was hanging around like with his grandkids and like when you go and walk like long walks stuff like that. Very typical granddad. And he would love to tell Dennis about all like these trips out at sea and stuff like that. So on Halloween in 1951, Andrew was found dead in his fishing boat, and Dennis was in the boat when that
Oh.
happened. So, yeah. And during this period of time, this is when it was reported that Dennis had started to molest his younger brother Magnus as well. Nilsen was only about 6 years old. And yeah, so he's about 6 years old and this is all kicking off. Yeah.
The Broch people really don't help themselves. I'm sorry, I'll apologise now. Sorry, I need to stop saying that, but
So yeah, he's only 6 years old. He doesn't understand death. He doesn't really understand anything. So when this whole like granddad dying happened, so now this thing is actually what happens next is actually very normal for the time because so basically his mum showed Dennis his granddad in an open coffin in the house. That's normal. That was a thing for that some people still have this tradition. It was a thing for many, many years where the person whose funeral it is, they would have their open coffin in the living room of the house that they lived in. And that's a fairly normal thing to do. My mum says she remembers going to funerals where they did this. It's just that was a very normal thing. And she just went, oh, that's your granddad, he's just sleeping. I mean, he's 6 years old. Like, it's very hard to explain death to a 6-year-old. And this is apparently, according to Dennis, I say bullshit, but apparently this is when Dennis became obsessed with death. It's like, I can imagine the fascination about it, because, like, you're not understanding it, but, like, obsessive? I wouldn't say obsessive.
yeah.
Now, he would apparently try to make his skin pale and as blue as possible to appear dead, and would lay in front of the mirror for hours just admiring what it would like to be laying next to a dead body.
All I'm going to say is, Dennis don't have no brains because he's born in Scotland, and pale skin is...
Boy, you got it already.
I've got pale skin. That's what you get for being in Scotland. It'd be worse if he was actually ginger and then went, I want pale skin. You idiot. FYI, nobody in Scotland is, 100% ginger, or just everyone's dyed their hair and everyone is ginger. No.
It's just that if
but I just don't understand the fact that he wants to have lighter skin, because making yourself blue, if you suffocated yourself, would make your skin go a darker blue. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're effectively not making your skin light? Fucking idiot. Okay.
So at the age of 15, he dropped out of school. To be fair, 15, most kids are leaving school at 15.
A lot of people do that in Scotland, to be fair.
Yeah.
Well, now there's a lot more opportunities too, and probably because a lot of kids are doing drugs and alcohol, and they think they're tough as fucking nails. Oh, actually, they don't think they're tough as nails. They know they're tough as nails. Fucking, I'm 15, I'm gonna leave fucking school, and they end up working some...
But yeah, like,
I don't know what jobs they do now, but...
For our American listeners, or anyone else who's, like, people leave school at, like, 18 or whatever, in the UK, you basically leave secondary school, sorry, Matt,
Thank
at, like, the age of 16 before you go into college. That's basically the typical thing I did.
You have to sit your first exams. You have to do your first set of exams, though.
What?
So you have to do your first set of exams, and then... Or you can leave that year, right? So you could do your Nat 5s, or whatever it is, like the first exams you sit, and then just leave.
We do our GCSE exams, and then we leave, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that, you can do your first set of exams, leave, or stay on to do the next level up, and then leave, or stay and do the next highest level. But you could do your first set of exams and leave.
That might be how it is in Scotland. We don't have that.
Oh, do you not have that?
So yeah, you go to secondary school, you do your GCSEs, then you leave, and it depends on your school. It solely depends on your school. Some schools have a sixth form connected to the school that school.
Oh no, not
and
here.
So you do the GCSEs, but you don't go on to do extra exams. You kind of just, there's no choice. You just go. You pick what course you want to do in sixth form. You do that for like 2 years or something, depending on what level you've chosen. If you're doing A level, you'll do an exam at the end of it. But if you're doing BTEC, you just do, it's solely coursework, so it's all practical stuff. But most a lot, especially now, a lot of sixth forms aren't connected to the schools. That's when you go into a college instead. So you go to you apply to a completely different place, pick a course. They'll go based on what you got in your GCSEs and
Oh,
and other stuff like that. And then you go to there, and yeah, same thing. A levels, do an exam at the end of your A levels. BTEC, solely coursework. That's how it is here.
okay. I kind of understand that, but Scottish people being Scottish people, we do stuff simple because we're smart. We're smart folk. You hit 15, you do your first set of exams, which are your national fives, or is now, it was something else differently. You do your national fives, that's it. Whatever you get in that, or if you don't have the ability to do national fives, you just do lower, which is Nat 4, which is a pass or fail thing. Nat 5s are your exams where you get A, B, C, D, etc. You do them, you can leave after that, and once you leave after that, well, it's either you leave and just go into a job or whatnot, or college, or blah, blah, blah. If you don't leave after your Nat 5s, you just go up and do higher, because it's higher grade. And then you can do them, and whatever happens after that, you can either stay on or you can leave to do college or whatnot. And if you stay on to the very last year of school, you do advanced hires because it's the higher grades but more advanced, harder, see? And then after you do that, you leave school, and that's it completely. There's no, you go to this thing, you go out, and that's it. There's no attached sixth form. You either go to college and apply to a course, which you could have done on your first year of exams or your second year of exams, and then, or if you stayed on, more likely uni at the end of that. But college is the safety net for someone who's 15, can be like, right, I've just done my exams, I didn't maybe do too well, I can just go straight into an entry-level course in uni, an entry-level course in college, and just build up my grounds from there. So I could just leave at 15, enter an intro course in something I'm interested in, and just work from the intro all the way up to working towards the higher national diploma, which is what I got. Or if you've stayed on to school, more than likely you'd leave after getting your better grades, and then uni, and then so forth. There's none of the sixth form college added on, so a lot of kids when they are 15 might just leave and say, fuck doing anything. Either go to college for a year and then just flounder out of it and just say, oh, it wasn't for me, or leave at 15 and just, or 16, however, and hope to find a job that'll take you and then earn some money and then go from there. Because there's people who've left school with just no grades whatsoever. They did it, or they left school before that and did homeschooling or whatnot and just fucked themselves and never stayed on. So their best bet would only be to start at a lower ground level course at college, or go into a job working for the council or doing whatever, etc., etc. So
Okay, so most likely is what's happened is someone in the article just saw that he'd left school at 15 and probably just assumed, whereas most likely they dropped out, whereas the most likely option is he went down one of those
yeah,
routes.
maybe back then, I don't know, but nowadays you can just get the choice to stay or
Okay.
just go. But you know what it's like. Teachers have to be like, right, should you leave? Is this the best option? They always make sure, like, when you're leaving, you know what you're going to do, so you don't go out and be clueless. That's what they said to me. And we do countless stuff in school, making sure that, you work through courses, make sure that you are going to something, you know what you're doing, that sort of thing. They, prioritize that because we don't want folk going out doing nothing. So, but for some folk, drugs and alcohol turn to the worst. They just fuck their school, their time at school, skip school, don't give a shit. Don't even come to classes, don't even get grades, and then end up doing a job, and they'll succeed in that job. But it's just hearsay with how
Yeah.
people are and the way their life goes. So maybe at 15, he probably just left on his own accord and wanted just to work in a job
Yeah, so
and didn't decide to stay on for grades.
he left at 15, which is clearly just the norm, and he went and joined the army, which is another serial killer thing. So he went and joined the army, and he did this for about 3 years. So during this time in the army, he realized that he had literally no attraction to women. And plus, like, he's 15 at this point. Like, this is when you're gonna start realizing shit. So he realized
You can realize earlier, though.
you can realize earlier,
But
but if you're like a late bloomer, maybe, then you might realize it
yeah,
later. But people realize at different points in their life anyway. But yeah, so he realized he had no attraction to women and pretty much only to men. He tried his best to hide this because this is obviously during the times when it's pretty much illegal to be gay. So,
and it would be more frowned upon in the army, right? I'm pretty sure
oh yeah. So he
they
tried
would
to
have.
hide this the best he could from his army friends, except basically he became an alcoholic like his dad. And well, actually, no. At first, he didn't really drink that much. He would later on become an alcoholic. But during this time in the army, he would pretend to be drunk because he wanted his friends to molest him while he was drunk. It's like, dude, they're probably not going to do that. It's very weird. He would then sexually assault local boys who would be hired to help any army members in the camp carry out the jobs and stuff like that. He did have sex with a woman, and he called the experience overrated and depressing. And to be fair, I know a few people who are gay who have had sex with a woman, and they have all said the same thing.
I mean, I'd love to know what it's like to have sex with a woman, but I don't.
Well, I mean, because I think in comparison to what they actually like they're gonna be like, "What the fuck is this?" Yeah, they didn't enjoy it. Which, to be fair, like,
Was this during the time that they were gay or before they were?
no, it's during the time that they were. I think they were just like, "But what if, like, maybe I am a little bit bi or something like that," and then they
Yeah, I mean,
they
you only know from
they
like
didn't knock it till
experimenting.
they tried it, and now they knock it. So,
I mean, personally, I don't think I would nosh off a man. I would eat out someone, but like, I can understand when people are curious and want to try. So, you know, you never know what you truly are until you really set yourself down. Because people can change all the time. There's no time to just. You don't get solidified into this life form at any certain age. You know, you could be 50, 60, 70 and still be like, I am this now, and discover yourself. So
yeah, exactly. So he would get Polaroids of his army friends pretending to be corpses, which is fucking weird. I don't know how the hell he convinced anyone to do that, but fair, whatever. He would then come home not too, like, after 3 years, but he basically didn't want to go straight back home. So when he did go home for a bit, on Christmas, he went home for Christmas basically, and they were watching a documentary. The entire family were watching a documentary on homosexuality, and basically his brother Magnus perked up and said he thinks it's wrong and it's disgusting, and then the entire family agreed, and Dennis basically left the family home because, well, he's gay, and he said that it's not wrong, it's not disgusting, and defended it like the gay man that he is, and he basically just went, no, I'm out. And he went straight to London. So he went to London and he joined the police service because he's been in the army. Like, he'll have some kind of like skills he can use.
I guess they'd hire folk if you've got experience in the army at least.
Yeah. So he went and joined the police force, and he became a regular in the London gay bars around this time, and which, to be fair, like, good, and he felt like he could be himself a lot more. He did eventually leave the police, however, when he was on duty, because he apparently caught a gay couple having sex in a car, and the procedure at the time was to, if you saw this, to arrest them. But obviously Dennis didn't want to do that. This is the only good thing that he did. This is the only good thing that he fucking does. He didn't arrest them, he left them alone, and he resigned from the police due to homophobia. So he left the police force because he didn't want to carry out the procedures. The police would report years later, after his arrest, a different turn of events. No one knows which one's true. So obviously the one that most people know is he resigned because of homophobia, but another version, which was mentioned in the 3-episode show Des, was that he was forced to leave the police force after he was caught masturbating in the morgue. And you know what? Either one of them could be true, because sounds about right, both of them.
And that's a pretty valid reason to fire him.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
the fuck are you masturbating there?
Also, why is he in the
Touching this Dodger in the morgue.
Why is he in the fucking morgue anyway? But yeah, so then he left and he went on site working at a job centre. Now, after this, he then met a man named David Gallahan, who actually became his like only relationship, like the only person he's ever been in a relationship with, and he ended up being like the best person for him during this period of time. Like, they were very, very much in love with each other. They decided to set up a house together. So they went flat hunting, and they came across a place which is now very much famous in London, and that is 195 Melrose Avenue. Now they were happy.
Does that
Sorry?
building still exist? Does the building still exist, or is
Melrose
it?
Avenue is still a place, and so is Cranley Gardens.
Yeah, I know some places that have been destroyed, but I did wonder if this one has been
Cranley
destroyed.
Gardens and Melrose Avenue are still there. Yeah, and
Ah,
there's a couple actually living in Cranley Gardens now. Apparently,
yeah, and I wouldn't live.
I wouldn't do it.
You know,
No.
I wouldn't live in this. If you have well-known knowledge that
Yeah.
what's gone on in here, you wouldn't want to. You can't, even if it's like repainted, repaved over stuff. It's still like no. Like if someone said to you, like, right, go in that room. Okay, there was like 20 men that were murdered in that room. Spend the night in it. No, thank you. Uh-uh. Knowing that I'm standing on ground where something happened, I'm like, ew, no, no, no.
Especially in Melrose Avenue, where he
Don't
put them
do it.
under floorboards. Like, you don't want to.
Yeah, it's like why you gonna be sleeping? If I even had to go in there, I'm like, no, stepping on the ground. I can't just be like, oh, nothing's happened here before. I've got that knowledge of every time I'm stepping on that floorboard that there was something underneath it. It was
Yeah,
horrible.
and
Ah!
the estate agents have to tell you if something
Oh
tragic has
yes.
happened. They legally have to tell you. So yeah, they were happy for about 2 years together. They even got a dog together who they named Bleep because apparently that was the noise that she made when they got her. And they used to love gardening together, stuff like that. Nilsen even used to call David Twinkle. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they're so stereotypical. It's like that relationship. Genuinely, if he didn't carry on to do the rest of the shit that he did, like that's adorable to me. But this was not going to last long. So David lost interest in Dennis. The relationship basically fell apart, and it got to the point where both of them started bringing back other men to the house to sleep with. And Dennis even brought a woman back at one point, which actually shocked both of them. When the relationship ended, Nilsen attempted to fill the void by throwing himself into work, becoming a massive workaholic, but then going to the gay bars quite a fair bit. But then he started going on to like more drinking a bottle of rum all the time. So he became a raging alcoholic because after this relationship fell apart. Now, as 1978 started to finish off, he went into a deep depression after spending Christmas alone in his flat, which, to be fair, like I think most people would really.
But Christmas alone's tough though.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's yeah, like a depression after spending Christmas alone. Yeah, yeah, obviously. And this is when he said the fantasy of having a lifeless person to be with him came into his life. I don't know how the fuck he came to that conclusion, but you know what? He basically tried to explain it by saying that everyone leaves him and he didn't want people to leave, which is exactly what Dahmer used to say. Well, would eventually say.
Yes. Milwaukee Dahmer. Dahmer from Milwaukee, yes.
Yes. So, this is when we go into the murders. So, his first
Ooh.
victim was Stephen Dean Holmes. He was 14 years old. And he died on the 30th of December, 1978. Nilsen claimed to have met Stephen in a gay bar. He brought him back to his flat and very soon realised that Stephen's going to leave. He's not going to stay in the flat forever. So he took his tie and strangled him until Stephen became unconscious. He then decided to drown him to finish it off. He kept Stephen's body under the floorboards for 7.5 months until he removed the body to put it on a bonfire. Now, one thing he would do during those 7 months is every now and again, when he felt lonely, he'd take Stephen out of the floorboards, perch him up in a chair, and have conversations with him and lie next to him and stuff like that. Now, he didn't fully confess to the murder of Stephen until January 2006. His second victim was probably his most known, and this was Kenneth Ockenden, who was 23 years old. So Kenneth was Dennis's second victim. Kenneth
Canadian.
He's Canadian.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so Kenneth was his second victim. He met Dennis on the 3rd of December 1979. They met in a pub and they drank together for quite a few hours. They then took a tour of London and ended up back at Dennis's flat. Dennis hated the idea of his new friend flying back home because Kenneth was only there to visit relatives. So in fear of his friend leaving him, he strangled Kenneth with an electrical cord. Dennis hid Kenneth's body under the floorboards, taking him out every now and again for company. He says he would take Kenneth from beneath the floorboards so he could sit with him and watch TV with him. Now, Kenneth's disappearance was a whole huge investigation because Kenneth was a Canadian student who was visiting relatives in the UK, and his mum was pretty much a huge figure in Canada at the time. And because he didn't come home, it was very, very much like, we need to find this guy, basically. And the investigation was massive. Now, during the investigation, the police got a lot of abuse from the public because they couldn't solve the case or find any traces of him absolutely anywhere. And yeah, the public massively turned against the detectives once they closed this investigation. Now, the next victim was a 16-year-old boy named Martin Duffy. So Nilsen killed Martin Duffy on the 17th of May 1980. Duffy was a catering student from Birkenhead, Merseyside, who had hitchhiked to London without his parents knowing on the 13th of May. For 4 days, Duffy was sleeping rough near Euston train station before Nilsen found him. Dennis offered him a meal and a bed for the night, and Duffy accepted and they went back to his flat. Now, Dennis Nilsen was nicknamed the Kindly Killer because of how he got some of his victims into his flat by offering them a meal and a bed to sleep in for the night. Which he's obviously not a kindly killer.
No, but it's manipulative.
Yeah, he would target people who were gay like him, or he'd target vulnerable people. And this is why anyone who did survive Dennis Nilsen, when they came forward about what happened to them, about the attempted murder, stuff like that, they wouldn't be believed by the police because the police were like, well, he targets gay people. And they're like, well, I'm not gay. So a lot of people wouldn't be believed. And if they were gay, it was known as gay business. And it doesn't matter. So you couldn't fucking
Yeah.
win.
It's horrible how people were treated that way, that we take it for granted now. It's not 100% perfect, but now, we can identify people as this and it's not seen in a bad light. But the media, especially at that time, would have used that as the reasoning. Just pinpointing that thing.
He was not going after
he
wasn't going after just gay people. He was going after vulnerable people or people who he found attractive, basically.
And it's very easy and manipulative for folk to do that, just to be super nice, and you just yourself, you've like your mates have said, oh, come do this, like, oh, okay, and you've just done it, and you've never thought about how easy that was, that they just got you to do it. And in the sense of this, especially because they're younger, how easy it was for him to just say, look, I'll give you a place, I'll give you a meal. And for them to be like, oh, okay, and not think about that so at all, and just took that, how easy it was, is quite shocking. A lot of these, cases back in the day of how easy it is for folk to just, have been manipulated. People still get manipulated now, but I feel as though it happens less because people have more knowledge of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And that stranger danger is perceived like more, that sort of thing.
You don't really see hitchhikers anymore, for a prime example. That's not really a thing.
Well, not here. There maybe is in America, but there's a lot of times here I'll be out and about and I'll see like a family, someone's like, nope, don't speak to him. Or there will be folk when they're older, they'll speak to people like kids or people who are a little older than them, and like chat shit at them and that sort of thing, and maybe threatening to one another. You maybe get that in man, you get kids that go down the street and, oh yeah, fuck you, that sort of thing. But in terms of like people actually like, I don't know, older man in their 60s coming up to a young child and going, oh hey, well, if it was up here, for example, someone that says, all right, wee lad, what are you doing today? You wanna come in my car? I've got some sweeties for you. And the kid goes,
fuck hell,
you saying, mate? I'm not fucking having your sweets. You can fuck off. It's like, oh, come in my car. I don't fucking know you. people have that sort of, I know I'm swearing a lot, but people have that census now to not trust some random person because they have a more or less an idea of this isn't going to go anywhere good for me at least.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a shame because all these people just got manipulated so easy because they're so young. This is what I hate about this case is that these people just got swooped in so easily, and they could have so easily have not died if they just had a bit of initiative and didn't fall for his niceness trap, if you call it that.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, Martin Duffy went back to Dennis's flat, and when he was asleep, he fell asleep on Dennis's bed. And so Nilsen put a ligature around his neck and then sat on Duffy's chest and tightened it. He held this grip until Duffy became unconscious, and he then dragged him into his kitchen and drowned him in his sink before having a bath with his body. He then said that it was the youngest he had ever seen. Why'd you have to add that bit in, you cunt? So his body was first placed on a kitchen chair and then on the bed where he was strangled. He was then sorry, this is gross. This is so fucking gross. Trigger warning. He then repeatedly kissed, complimented, and caressed the body. Both before and after he had masturbated while sitting on the stomach of the body. For 2 days, Duffy's body was stored in a cupboard before Dennis noticed signs of bloating, which is what happens when someone dies. He then put him under the floorboards.
I hate the term caress.
I hate the term caress as well. I hate it, but I don't want to go touched up, did I?
No, but like whenever I think of the term caressed, I just think of this. You know when someone's like this, doing the one
another really
finger.
creepy thing, yeah.
Oh, that's so because like caressing could be just like slightly, and I guess when people get it on, their hands might caress someone's arse.
It's not exactly
Like
I don't
like put their hand on someone's arse. All right, hand, caress my fucking arse.
If anyone ever says that to me, I'm hitting them in the face. And it should be allowed.
I don't know if I had a partner and they went.
Don't do it.
I'm laughing because of how stupid the term is. Like, imagine someone went at me and is like, "Can I caress your balls?" or some shit.
What?
Who even says the word caress in any
No one except people who write
meaningful term?
Except for people who write articles on fucking serial killers because they're creepy as shit anyway.
But I mean, it's a PC term.
Also, to be fair, I'd rather say caress than when caress the balls and when someone says fondle.
Touch the balls.
Because when someone says fondle, all I imagine is them just like grabbing and just going. Yeah, fuck that.
The meat and potatoes fondling the tatties, the meat and potatoes. But the term caress, I always just imagine it with the one finger caress. And when people do that weird stare, when you look at something, I just imagine them.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
It's so fucked. Every time you said caress with any kiss, I've always thought they're staring in and they're just doing that to someone's lifeless body.
I don't think I'm going to be saying that word anymore after this. I'm pretty sure. It's not anywhere else in my research.
It's just please don't do that. I see people do on the telly. Like, are you okay? And caress it. No, I just find that weird, and it's more fucked than the the fact that person's dead. I mean, Lord, please don't caress other people like this, because to me that if you want to do it, that's totally fine. But for me, I just don't like when people do that, especially. Sorry, in this case. Yeah. Just the word has just been desensitized for me. I can't really say it without either laughing because of how stupid it is when people do that shit, or of how fucked up it is.
Yeah.
So I wasn't laughing at him caressing the shit in a funny way. No. It's just because fucking stupid doing that.
So yeah, after Martin's murder, Dennis began killing even more. Before the end of 1980, he killed 5 more people and attempted to murder 1 other. Only one of these victims was identified, and that was 26-year-old William Sutherland. And that was the only person. That was the only one who was identified. Nilsen, he doesn't remember names, but he remembers what he did. And I think he did remember brief bits of the names, but I think he just wanted the glory, really. So it's very vague, but he graphically recalled how each victim had been murdered and just how long the body had been left out before he put them under the floorboards. Like, he knows that much, but he doesn't know fucking names. One unidentified victim was killed in November and had moved his legs in a cycling motion as he was strangled because he was struggling to get away. Another unidentified victim, Nilsen, had failed to resuscitate. I don't know why, because it's very, very not like his behaviour, before apparently crying. On another occasion, he had laid in bed alongside another victim as he listened to the classical theme Fanfare for the Common Man before bursting into tears. Fucking weirdo.
Oh, who listens to a fanfare and fucking cries next to a fucking body? What?
Fucking serial killer, clearly.
Oh no, that's Dennis, why?
Why, Dennis? Why are you doing everything?
What?
So obviously the bodies under the floorboards attracted insects and created a very, very disgusting smell, especially in the summer.
Oh, the hot. I mean,
Yeah.
the UK's not that warm, but when
still,
it is hot.
Like, you know what it's like. If you're like being a bit lazy one day in the summer and you kind of leave your dishes out for a bit too long, it starts to smell a bit. That's just like leaving a bit of dishes out that you need to wash. But
Lauren's just admitted she's lazy and doesn't do the dishes, but it doesn't happen that much in my house.
I do the dishes, right? It's just sometimes I'm just like, I'll do this in the next couple of hours, and then yeah. So basically, they started to stink because it's the fucking summer and they're rotting bodies. In late 1980, Dennis removed and dissected each of the bodies that were under the floorboards of the ones that he killed since December 1979. Now, he got absolutely hammered to do this because it was that disgusting. He said he had to get hammered because it was that vile. Like, even he couldn't hack it. It's like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate folk killing folk and then just remembering it straight away. But the fact that he's kept the bodies makes it all worse because he's done it to himself there. Hidden bodies that are clearly gonna smell, rot with insects, bearing in mind it's maggots and stuff.
Oh, yeah, he went into detail.
Around the body, coming out the eyes and stuff, I believe. The bodies had maggots. Like, look, and you have to dispose of them. He did it to himself, and the smell is, probably gonna be so fucking horrific. Just, and the fact he had to get drunk, he literally did it to himself. I don't know why you'd store them on the floorboards where you're living, because it's bad enough having rotten food left out and the stench of that, and you do it to yourself because you left the rotten food there. He's done it on a more extreme level for bodies, and I'm like,
yeah,
dude, no, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have just fucking kept them because you fucking fucked them yourself. You shouldn't kill them in the first place, but keeping them, insult to injury.
So yeah, he got absolutely hammered because he needs to get through this dissection process. And he burned them all in a communal bonfire. So, bear in mind, this is late 1980. Communal bonfire, you're definitely doing this around bonfire night to try and not make it look suspicious. So he's kept these bodies underneath his floorboards for almost a year through the summer heat, which is disgusting. So, to disguise the smell of burning flesh, he put old tyres around the bonfire to kind of make...
burning rubber.
Yeah, it's probably better than flesh.
But it's still a horrible smell.
Yeah. So 3 neighbourhood children stood to watch the bonfire. Because it's bonfire night, most likely. They're like, the bonfire. Let's just watch it. Nilsen later wrote in his memoirs that he felt that it would have seemed in order if he had seen the 3 children dancing around the mass funeral fire that he had made, which is fucked up. It's not a cult.
Those kids had no idea they were watching a man burn alive bodies he'd kept under his floorboards. And that is a very fucked thought.
Yep. So when the bonfire went to ash, he used a rake to search the rest of the bonfire for any recognisable bones. He noticed that a skull was still intact, so he smashed it to pieces with the rake. Around the 4th of January 1981, Nilsen met an unidentified man who he described as 18-year-old blue-eyed, and that he was a young Scotsman.
No, not another Scot.
Yes. So they met at the Golden Lion pub in Soho. He was lured to Melrose Avenue because Nilsen was like, oh, let's have a drinking contest at my flat. After Nilsen and this victim had several drinks, he strangled him with a tie and placed the body beneath the floorboards. Nilsen is known to have informed his manager that he was ill and unable to go to work on the 12th of January so that he could dissect the body of this man and of another victim who he had killed a month earlier. By April, he had killed another 2 unidentified victims. One he described as an English skinhead who he met in Leicester Square. The other he described as Belfast Boy, who was a man in his early 20s and around 5'9", who he murdered in February. When asked about these murders, he casually said, "End of the day, end of the drink, end of the person, floorboards back, carpet replaced, and back to work at Denmark Street." The following month, he removed the internal organs of several victims who he kept under his floorboards and followed the dissection process again. He did around 3 bonfires at Melrose Avenue during this period of time to get rid of the evidence. Now, the final victim at Melrose Avenue was 23-year-old Malcolm Barlow. So Malcolm was an orphan who had mental health problems and he had epilepsy. Nilsen found Malcolm outside of his flat complaining about his epilepsy, so Nilsen called an ambulance to help him out. When Malcolm was released from the hospital, he went back to Dennis's flat to say thank you and how much he appreciated it. But he clearly got Dennis on an off day, because Dennis then invited him in for a drink. When Malcolm fell asleep, Dennis realised he liked Malcolm and didn't want him to leave. So Dennis strangled him and placed him in the cabinets under the sink. He then told police he would sometimes take the victims out of their hiding spots to sleep with him in his bed for weeks at a time. In mid-1981, his landlord decided to renovate 195 Melrose Avenue and asked Nilsen to move out. Now, Dennis was against the idea and refused to move. However, he accepted an offer of £1,000 if he moved out. He then moved into an attic flat at 23D Cranley Gardens in the Muswell Hill district of North London on the 5th of October 1981. The day before leaving Melrose Avenue, he burned the rest of the bodies that he had, which was 5 victims, in a final bonfire. So now we're going into 23 Cranley Gardens.
I'm gonna look at Melrose Avenue. I think buildings of this horrificness
should be knocked down 100%, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Is it gone?
Wait a minute. Is it 195? Yeah.
Is it gone?
No.
Oh, it's
It's blurred. It's blurred on Google.
It will be.
It's blurred on Google Street View. You can't see it.
I'm not surprised.
That's weird. They've blurred it. They've literally there's people. There's a car outside, but they've blurred it. You can't see it.
Yeah, no, they won't. They won't have it.
See now. I'm wondering, what do you think the reasoning is for them blurring it?
The obvious.
Is it because of his crimes?
Yes.
Or is it because people kept coming to the house because of its notoriety? Because I know, it's a little off topic. I know the house that was if you ever watched the show The Amazing World of Gumball, the house that the Watterson family live in is based on an actual house that exists somewhere in America. I think it's in New York. And they had to blur it on Google Street View because people kept finding out where it was and coming to it. So I'm wondering if they did have to blur it on the case of people just were Googling it and like, right, we're going to go to the house, kept knocking on it and for the people's privacy. But it's completely blurred. The houses now, have you seen what the houses look like now? They look pretty decent. I mean, oh wait. 195?
Yeah.
That's weird.
What?
195's not the one that's blurred.
Oh, that's interesting.
Wait, the one next to it says 195, but the one that's blurred
It is
is
a
19.
it's a flat, so they're all connected. That's probably why. So the one that's blurred would have been his.
Oh, so in terms of like 195,
They're all flats. They're all classed as ground floor flats. Yeah, that's why.
nah, but they're conjoint, and then there's a split in between both of them, and 195 is conjoint on the left to another house on the right, and there would be a gap in between the one that's blurred. So I'm a bit confused at why. If anyone knows of this, I don't know why. I thought that was 195. I know it said 194, but apparently the one next to it, which is white, is 195. Unless they've changed the numbering for some reason. He was actually in that one that was 195, but they've changed the numbering now. I don't know.
If anyone
But
does
I know you
know,
don't
then
look at Street
if
View.
anyone does know, please get in touch. But yeah, so
Okay, it's blurred.
he's
Weird.
Yeah, that is weird. So he's left Melrose Avenue and now he's at Cranley Gardens. And in Cranley Gardens, he's in an attic flat, so he has no access to a garden. He couldn't put anybody's under the floorboards either, so kind of screwed with what you usually did. So for almost 2 months, he didn't murder anyone. He didn't assault anyone, but he did bring people back, but just purely to probably just to sleep with them. Except for this one time where he did try to strangle 19-year-old Paul Nobbs on the 23rd of November 1981, but stopped himself before he could actually murder him. In March 1982, Nilsen met 23-year-old John Howlett while drinking in a bar near Leicester Square. John was lured to his flat on the promise of carrying on drinking. There, both of them drank as they watched a film before John walked into Dennis's front room and fell asleep on his bed, because his bed was in the front room at the time. 1 hour later, Dennis unsuccessfully tried to wake him up. He then sat on the edge of the bed drinking rum before deciding to kill him. Mate, I've drank rum like loads of times and not once have I gone, let me just kill this guy now. So John struggled and tried to strangle Nilsen back. Nilsen strangled John until he became unconscious, and then with a strap he went back into the living room and tried to strangle him multiple times with a strap, basically. He then went back into the living room, shaking from the stress of the struggle. Oh no, Dennis, poor you. In which he believed he said he was stressed because he could be overpowered. He didn't like it. On 3 occasions over the next 10 minutes, Nilsen unsuccessfully tried to kill John after noting he had carried on breathing, before deciding to fill his bathtub with water and drown him in it. For over a week after John's murder, Nilsen had marks on his neck from his victim. Good bitch. In May 1982, Nilsen met Carl Stotter, who was a 21-year-old gay man. As the young man drank at the Black Cap pub in Camden, Nilsen engaged Stotter in conversation, discovering that he was depressed following a failed relationship. He then got him absolutely hammered. Nilsen invited Stotter to his flat, assuring his guest that he had no intention of sexual activity or anything. At the flat, Stotter consumed more alcohol before falling asleep on the open sleeping bag. He later woke up to find himself being strangled, with Nilsen loudly whispering, "Stay still." Now, Stotter survived this. So, he was actually at Nilsen's testimony. Well, he testified against Nilsen and he was at the trial. So, Stotter stated that he initially believed Nilsen was trying to get him out the sleeping bag because the zip was stuck, before he realised that he was doing the opposite. He then vaguely recalled hearing water running before realising he was immersed in the water and that Nilsen was attempting to drown him. After briefly succeeding in raising his head above the water, Stotter gasped the word, "No more please, no more," before Nilsen again put his head under the water. Believing that he had killed him, Nilsen put Stotter in his armchair, then noticed that bleep started licking his face. Nilsen realised that the tiniest bit of life was still in him. He then rubbed Stotter's limbs and heart to increase circulation, covered his body in blankets, then laid him on his bed. When he woke up, Nilsen gave him a hug. He then explained to Stotter that he had almost strangled himself on the zip of the sleeping bag and that he had resuscitated him. Now, over the next 2 days, Stotter repeatedly came in and out of consciousness, and when he regained enough strength to question if he was trying to kill him or whatever, Nilsen explained that the whole being caught in the zip thing of the sleeping bag. Now, he then walked him to a nearby train station where he told him that he hoped they might meet again before Stotter went home. Now, for the next 3 months, basically, Stotter was going in and out of having nightmares about this. And he just basically thought it was a very bad dream. He didn't think it was real. He didn't think what he remembered the water. He was having nightmares about the water and almost dying. And he thought he was going a bit crazy, so he went to go see a therapist about it. Now, the therapist obviously would later get in contact with the police and say, my client has been talking a lot about very similar ways of methods of being killed, and he's the victim. I think you should speak to him. And then that's how we found out the rest of it. So 3 months after this all happened to Stotter, in June 1982, so Nilsen got a promotion at work. He then went out and he encountered a 27-year-old named Graham Allen. And they tried, when he was trying to get a taxi, to Shaftesbury Avenue. Allen accepted Nilsen's offer to come to Cranley Gardens to have some food or something like that. Now, obviously, this had been the case with all these other victims. He liked to try and lure them in with a meal and a bed and stuff like that. So Nilsen stated that he couldn't recall the precise moment he strangled Allen, but recalled approaching him as he sat eating an omelette with full intention of murdering him. Don't know why, don't know how that works. Allen's body was retained in the bathtub for a total of 3 days before Nilsen began the task of dissecting the body on the kitchen floor. Nilsen is again known to have informed his employers that he was ill and unable to attend work on the 9th of October 1982, so he could carry out the job of dissection. On the 26th of January 1983, Dennis Nilsen killed his final victim, which was 20-year-old Stephen Sinclair. Stephen Sinclair was last seen by friends in the company of Nilsen walking in the direction of a tube station. At Nilsen's flat, Sinclair fell asleep in a drug and alcohol-induced spurge in an armchair as Nilsen sat listening to the rock opera Tommy. Nilsen approached Sinclair. What?
That's by The Who.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Tarnished people listening to that probably. That's for sure.
So Nilsen approached Sinclair, knelt before him and said to himself, "Oh Stephen, here I go again." Before strangling Sinclair with a ligature constructed with a necktie and a rope. Noting bandages on each of Sinclair's wrists, Nilsen removed these to discover several deep slash marks from where Sinclair had recently tried to kill himself. So he thought that he was doing him a favour. During his usual ritual of bathing with the body, Nilsen laid Sinclair's body on his bed and applied talcum powder to it, then arranged 3 mirrors around the bed before himself lying naked alongside the body. Several hours later, he turned Stephen's head towards him before kissing him on the forehead and saying, "Good night, Stephen." Get a fucking blow-up doll, you fucking weirdo. Just get a fucking mannequin or some shit, you fucking freak.
That's
you fucking freak. Just get a fucking doll.
Yeah, I mean, fucking, I don't know, fucking, they might do the job blow up dolls, I don't fucking know.
They'll be fucking lifeless. Just fucking get a doll, man. It's way easier. You don't have to do the dissecting. You don't have to do the murdering and all tough shit. Just get the fucking doll and be a weirdo. Done.
Yeah, just the saying that how when they do that a lot with the dead bodies, they look at them and they say as if they're human when they're dead. No,
Yeah,
fuck off. Ah,
yeah, no. So Nielsen then fell asleep next to him, and he then dissected Sinclair with various dismembered parts wrapped in plastic bags and stored in either a wardrobe, a tea chest, or within a drawer located beneath the bathtub. The bags used to seal Sinclair's remains were sealed with the same bandages that Nielsen had found on his wrists. Nielsen attempted to dispose of the flesh, internal organs, and smaller bones of all three victims killed at Cranley Gardens by flushing their remains down the toilet. Now, mate, what made you think that was going to work?
he created his own downfall.
Genuinely, what in your head thought that was going to work?
I mean, it
Bones.
doesn't.
Bones.
I follow someone on TikTok called the Pooh guy, whatever his name is, and this guy basically his job is to go and unblock clogged toilets and drains and shit, and he posts it on TikTok, and
Ugh.
I must say the content is a bit addicting. But from his videos and from what I've seen, the amount of people that have shoved stuff down and how blocked like piping and tunneling can get from like loos or like that sort of thing. It's like there's reasons why you shouldn't heavy clog stuff down toilets because it doesn't just all disappear. As many people think that you put it down there, flush the toilet, it'll go and that's it gone. No, 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 no. It can get heavy blocked. When it is, shit ain't going nowhere.
Exactly. It's not like no. So, in a practice that he had conducted at Melrose Avenue, he also boiled the heads, hands, and feet to remove the flesh of these sections of the victims' bodies. Gross. On the 4th of February 1983, Nilsen wrote a letter of complaint to the estate agents complaining that the drains at Cranley Gardens were blocked and that the situation for both himself and the other tenants at the property was intolerable. The following day, he refused to allow an acquaintance to enter his property, the reason being he had begun to dismember Sinclair's body on the floor of his kitchen. You blocked the drains, you twat. Which obviously he knows that he did. I think he was trying to basically just be like, oh no, I didn't do it. So, it all started to unravel because he shoved shit down the drains. His murders were discovered by Dino Rod employee Michael Catron, who had responded to the plumbing complaints made by both Nilsen and the other tenants on the 8th of February 1983. When he opened a drain cover at the side of the house, he discovered the drain was packed with flesh-like substance and numerous small bones of unknown origin. He then reported this whole thing to his supervisor, Gary Wheeler. He then arrived at the property first thing in the morning, and he and Wheeler agreed to postpone further investigation into the blockage until the following day. Now, prior to leaving the property, Nilsen and fellow tenant Jim Alcock basically went to him to discuss the source of the substance. Now, when Nilsen heard him explain how similar the substance was in appearance to human flesh, Nilsen said, "It looks to me like someone has been flushing down their Kentucky Fried Chicken."
No. There's a clear difference.
There's a clear difference, yeah. So at 7:30 in the morning the following day, Catron and Wheeler returned to Cranley Gardens, by which time the drain had been cleared. Now, it had been noted by the other tenants that they could hear someone draining it very late at night, which was obviously Dennis. So this got them very confused. So then he discovered some scraps of flesh and 4 bones in a pipe leading from the drain, which linked to the top flat. Because that's how drains work, Dennis.
I mean, seeing it now, I've got an image of the house up. I can kind of think maybe it's around the back. I know it's the one at the front, but there's a pipe that leads up to the top.
Yeah, it's all connected. It's a fucking drain. So They think that the bones look like they originated from a human hand. Now, both men immediately called the police, who, upon further inspection, discovered further small bones and scraps of what looked to the naked eye like either human or animal flesh in the same pipe. These remains were taken to the mortuary, where pathologist David Bauman advised police that the remains were human, and that one particular piece of flesh he concluded had been from a human neck, because of the ligature mark that was on it.
Look, I can't fathom the fact that someone finding a chunk of human flesh.
Yeah.
Or like, you know how when you get like a bit of your skin comes off and you peel it off and you got a tiny bit. That's a tiny bit of skin. But on that level, they must have found a decent size. Like, imagine if I just took like a massive square about my thing here and seen that. Oh, that must be horrible, because it's like, what is that? And then you're like, oh, that's skin. Because we all know what skin looks like, but I've like seen I've seen cut open legs and that, or like, you've had a cut on yourself, but that's just a slice in the skin. It's not like an actual big chunk has come out and you physically holding it. So the fact is, and my arm feels funny now explaining that. But like, if you saw that, like, it's just a chunk of flesh, that's like, holy fuck, how they can see that and not be like, freak the hell out and be like, all right, that's human flesh.
Yeah.
So it's horrible.
I love that with this bit. I've watched the freaking show so many times. I know what goes on next. So basically, the police spoke to the tenants, and they said that the person in the top floor flat was Dennis Nilsen. Now, Detective Chief Inspector Peter J and two other colleagues decided to wait outside the house for Nilsen to come home from work. When Nilsen came home, DCIJ introduced himself and his colleagues, explaining that they had come to inquire about the blockage in the drains coming from the flat. Now, Nilsen just went, why are police interested in drains? And probably just thinking, shit. And in response to this, Jay informed Nilsen that the two other police officers that were with him were police officers and requested access to his flat to discuss this a bit further. And he was very much like, yeah, okay. Took him upstairs, took them all upstairs to his flat, and just was like, being very, very calm, very, very calm. So he opened the door and he was like, oh, watch out for Bleep. This is Bleep. She's very, very nice and friendly. Like, she's not going to harm you, because Bleep is still in the flat. He still has Bleep. And he was like, still asking, like, why are you interested in the drains, all this kind of stuff. And this is when Peter J said that it was because there was human remains found blocking it, and it was coming from his flat. Now, Dennis was like, oh, how awful. And Peter J got straight to the point and said, don't mess about, where's the rest of the body?
Sorry, I find that funny. Because I read about it as well, and I laughed at the first part where they came in and they're like, he's trying to smell, and they're like, human remains have been found in your drains. And then Nielsen's just like shocked and like, oh, good grief, how awful. Ooh, like shocked as if he has no idea. And they're just like, don't fucking lie to us, you prick. We know there's bodies in here. Fucking show them to us.
Yeah,
That's what they're probably thinking. Is like, don't fuck around, mate. We know what's going on. See these American cases we do. They're not that brutal. They just, they knock on the door. Oh, something going on. Oh no, okay. Here, it's straight to the point. It's like, we know what the fuck's going on. Don't fucking lie to us. Yeah. Straight to the point. So and the fact he tried to be shocked, it's like, dude, like, we ain't gonna believe that shit.
Now, when they walked in the flat, the smell of burning flesh was obvious. Like, well, not burning flesh, but like rotten flesh was obvious. So
I mean, it feels weird that they'll go in there and they can like almost smell and be like, yeah, that's rotten flesh.
Yeah, I think it's just,
because I have no idea what that smells like. Neither do most of the general public. But I guess it's one of those smells where, like, you don't know what it is, but if you smelt it, you'd be like, I think I know that's what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, yeah, they just said, yeah, don't mess about. Where's the rest of the body? And he very calmly and very casually just went, in the cupboard. Like, that's what he said. He just went in the cupboard. So they went to the wardrobe and found the plastic bags, and they very much knew what it was. So they didn't really. They just arrested him on the spot on suspicion of murder, and they took him. They put him in the police car, to take him to the police station. Now, on the way to the police station, now they shouldn't have done this realistically because it was without a lawyer. They could have got in trouble for it, but thankfully they didn't. One of the officers asked Dennis whether the remains in his flat belonged to one or two people, and how many victims are we talking here? It was like, well, how many victims are we talking here? And Dennis basically was just staring out the window, like you do on a car journey, and just went, 15 or 16. And they thought that they were dealing with like one or two murders, basically. And then he said 15 or 16. And Peter J said that he almost crashed the car in shock. Like, he almost swerved off because he was in that much shock when he said it.
It's how openness he is about it.
He's very calm and open, and he pretty much stays like that until the day he died, really. Spoiler.
When because when I was Googling this case, I thought, how did he, like, confess? And it's always how has this person done it? And the fact is, like, he literally just confessed to it. And, even I like when they raided the flat and, they ask him, where's the other bodies? And he's just like, what the fuck does he say? There's someone on the Wikipedia page. Oh, yeah, here it is. He says, it's a long story. It goes back a long time. I'll tell you everything. I want to get off my chest. Not here, at the police station. Being like,
he's very calm.
I've done a lot. I've done this for a long time. I'll tell you everything you want. I need to get it off. Not here. I'll do it at the police station so other people can see. And then, like you said, he says like 15 or 16 since 1978. He basically just tells them, right, okay, you found me. Here you go. He doesn't go down, blaze of glory, try to evade them, anything like that. He lets them in. He realizes that the shock surprise act won't hold up, and they're like, we know. And he's like, okay, you got me. Tells them. And it's like, when I first read about that and saw it, like in articles and stuff, I was like, wow, he just went like that. Fuck it, I'm done. Confess, tell you all the stuff, and just didn't try and prolong it and run away or none of that. He just, if I'm caught, I'm caught.
The second he is sat in front of the detectives to be interviewed about it, he is very open, very straight to the point. Now, this investigation very quickly became big news because the plumber went to the newspapers about it. So, the original thing was because he said 15 or 16 people that he'd killed, they wanted to keep it as quiet as possible, not so that no one could start interviewing people and mess with the case. Because if you don't know, when people get interviewed during the investigation, it can make there be less witnesses, less people with information that could be relevant, because as soon as that goes out to the public, it can't be used in the trial. That is a thing that basically almost fucked up the Fred and Rose case. Rose almost could have not been put in prison because people were going to the press so much. So they were trying to keep it as quiet as they possibly could, and obviously that didn't go to plan.
Because if that plumber boy had gone and said stuff which wasn't true, and the tabloids had put out there, and the entire media had, that's why cases here, like, yes, cases happen and people want to know more, but that's why it's like we cannot disclose this information, because a lot of British tabloids here, they'll eat any information and put that shit out. They won't care if it's true or not, and then they'll fucking get their ass whooped for just taking that information and not realizing if it was correct. And, if people, and because all that information gets out there, if you don't know what the truth is, that could deter how the trial goes, because this evidence might be the one they use at the time for the first.
Yeah.
And then that could be fake and wrong. So the way they've handled this case, it's quite surprising, because nowadays, oh God, that wouldn't happen.
No.
Random man goes to tabloid press sort of thing. I don't know where the press get their sources and shit from, but I ran on Plumber. Oh, well,
They
not ran on Plumber. Plumber wouldn't
yeah,
have.
they'll do their digging and they'll find people from his past and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then they'll find out stuff before the police do. Or what was happening in this case during this investigation? There were people inside the police station that were giving information to the press, which was not helping anything. Such as one member, someone, no, don't know who, but someone at the station told the press that Dennis Nilsen had been a former police officer, which then did not help because it made the police look pretty fucking bad.
Well, yeah. I
So,
mean,
yeah.
the police already get enough slack for not being that great when it comes to handling cases. So the fact that he was part of that and they didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of cases, especially I've seen in the UK, where something will happen at some workplace and like people be like, "How did that go unnoticed? That is violating loads of rules,
Mm-hmm.
breaking loads of things. Why was this, let under the carpet? Why did this happen? How did this happen?" Sort of thing. And it's like, it fucks, the people in the workplace, it fucks the company, but more so it's the police. How
Yeah.
does the public feel knowing that this serial killer was part of the police and they had no idea? What does that say about the police force, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And so they were interviewing him about. Obviously, all the remains that were at Cranley Gardens got brought to the mortuary to hopefully try and be identified. Now, some of them, it was very difficult, very very difficult because of how he dissected them. Now, another thing to add is that they wrote down all fifth. They wrote down that they needed fifth. They had 15 victims, and they needed to try and identify as many as possible, and that was their start goal. And the first person that they identified was Stephen Sinclair because he was the most recent, and that is someone who Dennis could remember the name of because it just happened not too long ago. So
Yeah.
he was officially charged with the murder of Stephen Sinclair when the body was identified. The police obviously had to go and tell the family and stuff like that, and the family weren't too happy about seeing the police because they just thought that Stephen had been arrested based on drug charges. So, yeah, that was not the best. So yeah, he got sent to HMP Brixton to be held in remand until his trial. Now he objected to having to wearing a prison uniform while on remand. In protest at having to wear a prison uniform and what he interpreted to be breaches of prison rules, Nielsen threatened to protest against his remand conditions by refusing to wear any clothes. As a result of this threat, he was not allowed to leave his cell. Now, before he got taken to the prison, obviously he was in custody for a fair while. He got taken on the way to getting taken to the prison. The press hounded the police station from all angles. Like every exit was completely blocked with press and paparazzi wanting to get a shot of Dennis Nilsen because they wanted it gotten out now that there was a serial killer. He's been arrested. His name is Dennis Nilsen, and they wanted the picture of him getting taken to the prison.
The press are so ruthless over here and put out so many horrible stories or
Yeah.
like bombard shit. I mean, I know from first experience up here, we had an accident of a train derailment up here, which killed some people, and the headline that the Sun put in their
Of
newspaper
course, it's the
was
sun.
fucking horrific. Never buy the Sun. Don't ever think of buying the Sun. Fuck the Sun. The article that they put up for that was so demoralizing, dehumanizing to the victims, was so horrible. And as soon as that came out, everyone around here fucking went for the Sun, as they should, because someone at the press just whipped out a story with that title, and it was just doing no justice to the victims. It was fucking horrific and horrible. And I'm on Wikipedia now, and I'm looking at what there's an article of what the Daily Mirror had said, and it's quite interesting because the front page just says Dennis Andrew Nielsen charged with murder. I can tell you, and you can see this as well, Lauren, that would not be a title for a thing today.
No.
You don't just have someone charged with murder.
No.
There'd be some other tagline or jokey tagline or some shit that goes with it. Because you
Yeah.
see that all the time in papers now. And also it said that the Mirror had obtained photographs from Nielsen's mother in Aberdeenshire, which appeared on the front page the following day.
Like,
They've just got a photo of his mother and slapped that on the front as well the next day.
That's also
It's like,
really
what?
annoying because he's not spoken to his family in years.
No,
at this point.
she's got no control of that. They just took a photo of her, like, oh, this is Nielsen's mother on the front.
She
Have a
did
go at her as well.
Fucking nothing wrong. And they will do that. They'll always target the mum. They always fucking do. Now,
Yeah.
so the police were very much like, shit, what do we do? Oh, we'll put a cover over you so they can't get pictures of your face. That's what we'll do. And he was very much against this. And this is when you realise he liked the glory. He liked the attention. Because he went, no, I've got nothing to hide. And you can see the pictures online of him going into the back of this police van. And he's very happy about it. He does not care. He's very open. Now, so yeah, they take him to the prison. And yeah, he hates all this shit. He said he was just a pain in the ass. So he was throwing shit out of his chamber. He was throwing stuff out of his cell. He was hitting several police officers. He then got found guilty on the 9th of August for assaulting a police officer, and he spent 56 days in solitary confinement. So, and also during this time, he was taken back to Melrose Avenue because some of the remains he did bury in the garden. So he went back there with the police to try and locate where he had buried several of the bodies. Those would later be used to try and identify. They interviewed him multiple times to try and basically get some more names, try and get him to remember some names. That's when he said the name Kenneth Ockenden. And the police naturally went into a massive state of shock because they remember that investigation very clearly, because the men who were working on the Dennis Nilsen case were this exact same men who worked on the Kenneth Ockenden case. And they were basically like, do not let that information get out to the press, because that's going to fucking kick off. Because we couldn't find him when he went missing. And they didn't believe him at all. In fact, Peter J's boss actually kicked off when he found out Peter J was trying to connect Nilsen to the Ockenden case. Now, they went through the DNA that they found at Melrose Avenue compared to Kenneth Ockenden's fingerprints that they had. And lo and behold, it was a match. So Kenneth Ockenden got put down as a victim. Now, on the 26th of May, Nilsen was committed to stand trial at the Old Bailey on 5 counts of murder and 2 attempted murders. A 6th murder charge was later added. Throughout this whole hearing, he was represented by a solicitor named Ronald Moss. You also need to add at this point during this, when he was going through all this trial and the investigation, there was a biographer that got in touch with him. In fact, let me grab it. Brian Masters got in touch with Dennis Nilsen while he was being held at the prison to interview him about his crimes, because he saw all the stuff like this kicking off in the news, and he went to go interview him. And obviously the police weren't happy about this, because Dennis was telling Brian things that he wasn't telling them, such as the information in Kenneth Ockenden, his past, all the shit he's done before, the details about the murders. He was telling less to the police but telling more to Brian Masters, which is when you get the book Killing for Company by Brian Masters, based on the case of Dennis Nilsen. By the way, it's a great book. I highly recommend it. So yeah, that all shit was kicking off as well. So this entire thing is going all over the place, and it's getting to the point where Peter J is genuinely worried that this sentencing won't happen. So he dismissed his legal representative on the 21st of April, his previous one. So Moss was to remain as Nilsen's legal representative until July 1983, when Nilsen again expressed his intention to defend himself because he wanted the spotlight, kind of like Bundy. He then got rid of his legal representative and tried to defend himself. It went badly and then went back and forth. This entire thing's a mess because he just wanted the attention. He wanted the glory. This is what he wanted. He then intended to plead guilty on each charge of murder at his upcoming trial. With Nilsen's full consent, Moss had fully prepared his defence 5 weeks before his trial. Nilsen again dismissed Moss and opted instead to be represented by Ralph Hames. And he then decided to plead not guilty. And this was a shock because that was not told to Peter J., who was in the courtroom at the time. He thought that Nilsen was going to plead guilty, and then he said not guilty. He was then brought to trial on the 24th of October 1983, and he was charged with 6 counts of murder and 2 of attempted murder. He was tried at the Old Bailey, and he pleaded not guilty on all charges, because at this point, out of the 15, 16 that he said, they've only managed to identify 6. The primary dispute between the prosecuting and defence counsel was not whether Nilsen had killed the victims, but based on his state of mind before and during the killings. I'll tell you what his state of mind was. Absolutely off his tits. He was hammered. And believe me, as someone who has been drunk many times before, gone on nights out, not once have I done shit like this. So you know what? You can't blame everything. You can blame some things in alcohol, but you can't blame fucking everything like this.
No. But, it might have played a little factor, some people might say, but, alcohol makes people do different things.
But
and
multiple murders.
No. As someone, I can't really say this, but I mean, as someone who lives in Scotland, I can say, and has been around many Scottish people who have been drunk, not one of them I've known to go and murder someone. We are known for our drinking, and maybe drinking problem. Only, I'd say probably ahead of Ireland, to be fair. But none of us go out and do that shit. So it's like, people pinpointing one person who was under the influence or did this sort of thing is like a no. I wouldn't just say that. Just personally, it's like, no. Don't pin it on that. No. Because he was that. Not everyone who's drunk does that.
Yeah, because he wasn't drunk all the freaking time that he was. It wasn't like Dahmer, who was constantly drunk. Like, he mostly got drunk to dismember the bodies. Like, he was still sober moderately sober for some of it. So, right, so they argue that Nilsen suffered from diminished responsibility, and they rendered him incapable of forming the intention to commit murder, and they said that he should be charged with manslaughter. No. Not how it works, especially with... Thing is, if you're going to do that, what explains the shit that he did for months on end afterwards?
Yeah.
What explains that shit? You want to blame the alcohol, okay, for the murders. He wasn't hammered when he was sleeping next to him. Well, explain the rest of the shit that he did. But So the following arguments of both prosecution and defence, the jury decided to consider their verdict on the 3rd of November 1983. The following day, the jury returned with the majority verdict of guilty upon 6 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder, with a unanimous verdict of guilty in relation to the attempted murder of Nobbs. Croom Johnson sentenced Nilsen to life imprisonment with a recommendation that he serve a minimum of 25 years. Now, Peter J. carried on. So Peter J. went down to the cells when Nilsen was taken away to go and talk to him, because he wanted to find out about the rest of the victims, because there's still many that aren't identified. Now, Nilsen then, you can watch this this is a quote that he said, it's an official quote. It's also reenacted in Des, and it made me feel a bit queasy. He looked Peter J. dead in the eye and said, "You know, that day you stopped me. Those 15 and 16. There would have been about 100 more. I never would have stopped." And then just walked away. Which is fucking chilling.
But it's probably true, though.
Yeah, he never would have fucking stopped.
He wouldn't have stopped.
No.
I mean, he basically created his own downfall by shoving it down the, But it's one of those cases where it's like, if he hadn't been evicted to that new property, would he still continue doing it? He went to this obviously the other property,
I feel like he definitely would
and
have. I feel like
and in the new property, if he hadn't have actually tried to shovel them down the
he would
drains,
he would have carried on, but he just wouldn't have gotten caught.
and it's he might have, he might not have, but more than likely he would have kept doing it. And in terms of him being caught, who knows how he would have been caught because he was dismembering them. I mean, maybe I think his other downfall would have been the smell, would have also been another way people would have,
Maybe.
and the decomposing of the bodies under the floorboards, that sort of thing. But he more than likely would have continued on, and he would have gone the same way if he continued more. He would and got caught. He probably would have just like given up, like he did when he did get caught. So it's not like he would
Yeah.
have tried to evade for ages and ages, even if he had been, identified.
So, Brian Masters continued to visit Nilsen for around 10 more years, mostly to get stuff for the book. But he visited him for 10 more years to see if he could get anything more out of him, but Dennis would always be aggressive. He was apparently just a fucking dickhead. So, on the 10th of May 2018, Nilsen was taken to HMP Full Sutton, was taken from Full Sutton to York Hospital after complaining of severe stomach pains. He was found to have a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm, which was repaired, although he then suffered from a blood clot as a complication of the surgery. He then died on the 12th of May. And he was, let me see how old he was when he died. Sorry. So he was 72 years old when he died on the 12th of May 2018. Now, he was cremated in June 2018. The service was held with only 5 people present, including 3 prison officers and an individual who he had been talking to while he was in prison. No family members were present at the service. What a fucking shock. Now, this part annoys me. So, H&P Full Sutton paid £3,323 towards the cost of his funeral. And his ashes were later handed to his family. I bet they fucking got rid of those dead quick.
Oh yes,
Oh, they
probably threw him in
launched
the
that
North
shit.
Sea.
They fucking launched that shit. They were like, bye. Cunt.
Yep.
Fucking guy. He's definitely been chucked off somewhere. So yeah, that is the case of Dennis Nilsen, the kindly killer. Not very kindly.
No.
Yeah, that is.
There's
Yeah.
It's an interesting case. There's way more detail that we could have delved into, because this case, there's
Yeah, you would
way
be
more if you really want to hammer into it. But
You could.
interestingly, I've just read here that several items confiscated from Nielsen's Cranley Gardens address are on display at New Scotland Yard's Crime Museum.
Yep, not
Ye-
shocker.
So if you want to
If you
go and
want
have a
to
look
go
at that,
have a check.
and what I do want to watch is, there's a lot of film and television stuff, but obviously she's mentioned Des, and I want to watch that because
Fucking
it stars
brilliant.
David Tennant.
It's fucking brilliant.
It stars David Tennant, who is a Scottish actor.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't really know who's David Tennant, you'll know him. He was Doctor Who, but he looks very similar to him in that role.
Wait, one sec. Wait. You're saying Doctor Who. Wait.
I mean, I can't see
For
anything,
anyone who's
but
watching or anything, but I've got a little David Tennant figurine from when he played the Doctor. I've got a little figurine.
but no, it's the case of like when Ross Lynch played Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh yeah, he plays young Jeffrey Dahmer, yeah.
I thought that casting was good.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail.
And in the case of Des, David Tennant as Dennis Nilsen, they look very...
Cause right. Little thing, I've always had a massive crush on David Tennant. That fucking ruined it.
I mean, us
Fucking
Scottish people...
Ruined it. I love him when he does his regular accent. I love it. And I was like, it's fucking ruined now, isn't it? Like,
But the acting, he's like, when I saw him getting cast for that, I'm like, yep, he's the only person that I think could pull off him.
He hit the nail on the head. So basically it's 3 episodes, and it came out like day after each other. And I watched it at the end of the week, so I went to watch it like all together. Like I made a whole evening of it. And he did it so perfectly. It was really fucking freaky, and it was just bang on. But the facial expressions, the way he stood, just everything, the body language.
Oh, yeah.
He hit it like he did fucking epic. He's definitely not listening. Maybe he is. You never know. Hello, David, if you are. But you did a fucking incredible job based on a case that I've been fascinated of for fucking years.
Yeah.
Hit the nail on the head. Definitely watch it. There is also a Netflix documentary that came out. I'm pretty sure it came... is it Dennis Nilsen? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure there's one on Netflix about Dennis Nilsen. There's a bunch of documentaries. Like I said, buy this fucking book, Killing for Company, by Brian Masters, The Case of Dennis Nilsen. It is brilliant. It really throws you off, though, because when you start reading it, it feels like you're reading a fictional story, and it's really weird, because it's written kind of like he's telling a tale.
I mean, apparently there's another podcast on it. The Muswell Hill Murderer, Case 144 of Case File True Crime Pod series, hosted by an anonymous Australian man.
Yeah, and there's also my favourite true crime podcast that posted an episode on it, All Killer No Filler. Go check them out. They did a fucking banging job on it. If you like comedy and you like true crime, definitely go check out that podcast. It's brilliant. But yeah,
there's a lot of you can go into this. We gave the details of what the case is, but there's a lot more you can delve into, because this is such a big case, and is one that still rings to this day, that people know it, and it will continue forever to be in British history as going over and over again. And I mean, obviously with the new Des, which also, to add, David Tennant is Scottish, and so is Dennis Nilsen, so luck of the draw there, that they, the right actor for happened to be Scottish as well. But there's so much more, nuanced detail in this, because it's one of those cases where it's a shame that there's a lot of detail, because that means a lot of stuff happened, and he was just a cruel, cruel man.
Yeah.
But the one thing that always sticks with me with this case is, and I don't know if you mentioned the early lifehood, but Dennis Nilsen nearly drowned when he was a child.
Yeah, interesting.
And that to me is like the fact that if he died then,
none of this would have happened.
None of that would have happened. I can't remember. I think he just got saved. I think he was in the North Sea or something. I'm not sure where it was, but he was some... What does it say on here? No, that's his granddad. Oh, wait. One of his solo excursions to the beach at... Wait, Inverallochie. Where's that? Inverallochie, where the fuck's that? But yeah, apparently he went on an expedition there. Inverallochie and Crame... Oh, I know where Inverallochie is. Oh, Inverallochie's up there. Oh, alright. Oh, that's just up from Charleston. I know where that is, yeah. Well, there's a beach area there. He went out and he nearly drowned in the North Sea. The inevitable, cruel North Sea. With all that oil in it. But the fact is that he nearly drowned there and someone saved him. It's like, what?
Oh, but that
like,
bastards were going that
if he died, none of this would have happened. And then obviously, as I was just researching there, it's who was the victim that managed to escape him?
Oh, fucking hell.
Whatever his I was just reading stuff while listening to the podcast, Lauren speak, that this victim, or people who had, or I saw a thing of a guy who actually encountered Nielsen. It haunted them. And the guy that escaped,
Carl Stotter, he also, when he was at the trial, he was getting a lot of homophobic abuse, because he's not only is he gay, but he's also very known in the area drag queen as well. And
yeah, because he changed his name later on.
Yeah, but yeah, people found out about that, and they basically, so during the trial with Carl Stotter, the prosecution decided to basically say to him, you dress up as a woman all the time, you could be acting and faking it, you could be lying, you can't, basically just saying you deserved it, and they was doing all this, and that's all in Des as well. The homophobia is very much there. They don't hide the fact that the police were homophobic as well, which I find fucking brilliant, because there was also an additional victim, and he came. It's in the show, but he came forward when Dennis Nilsen's name and face got out to the public, saying that Dennis Nilsen tried to kill me. And same story about it, like with all the other victims, and the method and the whole thing hadn't been released to the public, so this was definitely true.
Yeah.
But he went to the police and said they went out for a few drinks, they went back to his flat to have more drinks. He made a point of saying that he's straight, because obviously a lot of the other victims were gay. Well, some of them were. And when he managed to get away from Dennis, he went to the police, and the police brought him back to the flat, kind of like what happened with Dahmer and one of his victims, and basically apologised to Dennis for the inconvenience. There was one of the victims as well, I'm not sure, I can't remember which one. However, one of the victims, when everything came out, his girlfriend, and also the mother of his kids, went to the police saying, I think my boyfriend is a victim of Dennis Nilsen, because he's been missing for months, he's been missing for ages. He's not gay, but I want to know. And then they found out that, he was one of the victims. But then they were doing this whole thing, being like, well, he was clearly gay then. And she's like, no, not all the victims were clearly gay. Like, she clocked that before the police clocked that. He was going after anyone, but he was making sure that they were either vulnerable or near gay bars or in a gay bar, to try and just basically go after people that the police at the time, and even still sometimes to this day, did not give a flying shit about, and were easy to manipulate. That's what he did.
Yeah, but it was just like when I saw the thing of like, I can't remember what I read about Carl Stotter, but the fact that he had nightmares being like, why was he the one let go, and that he had a very serious problem with alcohol and drugs after that, and that the family believed that Dennis Nilsen basically led him to his death, because the fact is that he let him go and he had a problem with alcohol, and he basically drank himself to death.
Yeah.
Because he was in a coma state when they found him in his flat at some point, however old he was. And then I was like, whoa, the lasting effect it's had since when he was on trial. And then this guy, I can't find his name, but it was just an article I appeared of this old man who apparently recalled the moment where he missed his train and Dennis Nilsen was there, and Dennis Nilsen offered him back to his house to eat for food. And the man basically declined the offer, and how Dennis Nilsen was very angry at the fact that he was declining the offer. And then this guy said that years later, when he watched the documentary, he's like, hang on, that was the guy that I met at the train station who offered me back, and I declined, and I basically escaped to death.
Yeah.
But he had no idea. And it's just...
It's insane. But yeah, if you want to know more on the case, go watch the documentaries, go watch Des. Like I said, it's fucking incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like me, you can go on Google, you can see the houses. The fact that, as Lauren said, and as my Googling was, people have moved in. There's someone in the top flat of 23 Crawley Gardens
Cranley.
And 195 Melrose Avenue. I actually went on an article, and as you said, I can't remember, you correctly named them, but there is 2 people living in there.
I just said there's a couple living there, yeah. But they
you gave their names, they haven't got their last names. They haven't given their last names, but they did an article being like, here's how we renovated the house. We can see past all that stuff.
No.
Etc. etc.
I couldn't. Like, fair dues you can, but I couldn't fucking hell.
And then, yeah, I mean, I see their house here, 195. Please someone let me know why 194 seems to be the blurred one, because it's 195 is the white one, and that's definitely the property, because I'm looking at other images back in the day, that's the property he was at. But 194 is blurred, and I don't know why, because we don't blur a lot in the UK.
Yeah.
We don't have...
Moving past that, because it's giving me the fucking creeps.
Yeah. Regardless, there's stuff that's, there's still stuff of his legacy there. So I would have knocked down the houses, that sort of thing, but the fact that people can just live where a serial killer did commit crimes and stuff is like, nah. Whoa, I could never.
Exactly.
But
yeah, that was the case of Dennis Nilsen.
He rotted in hell, rotted in prison, he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. So yeah, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being here for this very creepy episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, whatever happens next week. But hopefully you enjoyed this case if you didn't know about it, because now you know one of Britain's most notorious cases and why this one hit home for me, because he's from near where I'm from. I mean, this man rot in hell. Should have never been born up here, prick.
Exactly, but yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Matt, for being here.
Pleasure as always.
And bye.
Bye.